channel to a safe space between us. I am your host Kieran and my co-host Tessa. This is your safe space. There is no judging here. We care. You're not alone. We will support you and help you. This is your channel too. Enjoy.
The safe space between us. I'm your host Kieran, and today we have the lovely Kari. Kari, hello, how are you?
Hello, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm tired because you've got me up early to do this, so fine. So Kari, before we come to your story and get to know a bit about you, so just introduce yourself, let everyone know what you do, and then we'll start with your story.
Yeah, so I'm Kari Moore, and I am a survivor of childhood abuse and domestic abuse as well. So basically, at the moment, I'm setting up my business in order to help other women and other adults that have gone through the same thing. So that's kind of my mission at the moment, is trying to get that up and running so that I can help everybody with the tools that I've learned along the way.
Lovely, you know that, yeah, it's really good, really good. So Kari, just talk to us. So obviously, obviously you're joining forces with us, kind of. So just tell us a little bit from the beginning as a child. Go as deep as you want. You can swear what you want, and obviously just tell us what you're able to tell us. So from the start, tell us what started your trauma and mental health, etc., and your upbringing.
Yeah, so this is quite an exclusive, really, because although people in my circle know, or a lot of people do, but not everybody does. So this is really the first time that I've spoken publicly about what has happened to me and in my life. So yeah, it's quite a big deal for me, but it's also very uplifting because for once I can actually feel like I'm in a position where I can talk about it and hopefully help people along the way and understand that they're not alone and realise that there's so many people out there that have gone through similar experiences, and this is an amazing space to bring everybody together and know that it's safe to talk about it. So I think it's amazing. But basically, my life living with trauma started from a really early age. So I was around about 6 or 7, and I suffered sexual abuse from a family member. So really, I can't remember a huge amount of my childhood, anything before that, or a lot of it even during, to be honest. I think obviously it's a lot to deal with at that age, but I think my journey has been that everything's been kept to myself. I've never opened up and I hadn't told anybody. So I'd literally gone through the whole of my childhood trying to navigate my way through life without any help, really. Yeah, so it was strange, really. As I say, a lot of it's quite hazy to do with my childhood, and I think that's a response that has kind of helped me, because I think from an early age I managed to block it out, a lot of it. And there was things, obviously I didn't understand it anyway at that age. Obviously it's only now, as time's gone on and I'm an adult and I've had other experiences along the way, that I realised what had happened. So I kind of dissociated myself from the actual event. So in my mind, it had gone on for probably about 3 or 4 years.
What, the abuse?
Yeah, it was an ongoing thing. It was an ongoing thing. So again, obviously it's hazy to be exact. Obviously when you're going through it, it's not like you keep a record of when it started and when it finished. But it was an ongoing thing. And I suppose I didn't know any different. I didn't know what was normal at that age. I didn't know whether this was normal, what was happening to me. It was stuff that was disguised as if it was something that everybody went through. But also there was always that element of you can't tell anybody.
Yeah, I get
And
that. Yeah.
you're obviously at that age, you don't understand the barriers and the boundaries that you should be able to put in place to prevent it from going any further. Obviously at that age, you're still learning yourself. I realise looking back that my parents were pretty much emotionally unavailable, and there must have been something along the way because I never told anybody. So I didn't tell a soul. And looking back now, I kind of think there must have been a reason why I felt like I couldn't tell them.
Yeah.
I'm not blaming them for the fact that I didn't tell them, but there's still an element of me that realises that there was something there that made me feel, even at that young age, that I couldn't say anything. And obviously I was being told, no one will believe you if you tell anyone, you know, this is going to happen to you.
Do you mind me asking, who was the family like? Obviously, is this person not here anymore, etc.?
No, they're still about, they're still around. And because it was family and I hadn't told a soul, every family event, that person would be there. Christmas, birthdays, all of that, I would pretend that everything was fine, because I think when you keep something like that to yourself, something so big, the longer it goes on, the harder it is to suddenly come out with it and tell people.
Yeah.
So it kind of
People
became
won't
the
believe you.
norm. No. And it became the norm for me to just continue everyday life as if nothing had happened. And maybe that was a coping mechanism as a child.
But at seven, you probably would thought that was kind of confusing and normal, or you wouldn't expect that. That's not right.
Yeah. No. And because it was somebody that I trusted, and I didn't know any different because I was so young. Yeah. Obviously at that age, you're not going to really think about it that deeply, I don't think, because you haven't got the tools with you in order to be able to make those decisions.
Yeah.
So time just seemed to go on. As I say, I have in my mind that it probably ended around 11. So that's quite a long time to be kind of living like that.
So all your primary school life, really? Wow.
Yeah. My first sort of informative years, that where I should be able to be me freely and to build up my relationships and who I want to be in the world, you know, in my life and all of that sort of stuff, that was taken away from me because I had all this stuff going on that I didn't really understand, and I didn't know what I was feeling. I was very shy. I didn't really, although I had friends, I wouldn't say that I didn't have friends, but I always felt like everyone was better than me.
Yeah.
So I never really felt like I lived my childhood like to my full potential, like where children can be quite selfish in lots of ways, can't they? Everything kind of revolves around them, and they don't really think about the consequences of anything at that age. I think I was always second guessing situations, and I think that then prevented me from being able to be who I wanted to be, or I felt I should be, kind of growing up, even at school. I suppose from an early age, I learned to be a people pleaser. That was basically it. I just wanted to please everybody because I think my self-worth obviously was zero because of what was going on. And I didn't really have a lot of positivity around me because of that. So I felt like, I just couldn't be myself. I couldn't, and I didn't know who I was really, I suppose. I've got somebody telling me things about me, and at that age you believe what they say because you think, well, this is somebody that's supposed to love and care for me.
Yeah.
And when you're hearing negative things about yourself, they go in, and you
Yeah.
don't know any different to kind of argue the fact that, you know, whether that's right or wrong at that particular point. But it held me back at school. Although I went to school every day, I was always, you know, I didn't bunk off or anything like that. I just went every day, but it wasn't really something that I particularly enjoyed. And because I think I was very wary. Looking back, I think I was, although I didn't realise it at the time, of people and having a voice and speaking up. So I would always be very much somebody that would be in the background. And I think that carried on through most of my life, really. I would say probably the only maybe 3 or 4 years that I actually feel like I've got to a point where I can be myself. And if I'm not happy with something, I can say I'm not happy about it.
Yeah.
And
At
that,
school, like, did you ever, like, obviously you didn't talk about it, but what was school like? Obviously, you must have been going. You said at times you felt a bit lonely, even though you had friends, and you didn't have a voice. Was there like support at school and obviously at home and that, where you felt comfortable to be able to talk about your feelings, or was there just
do you know,
non-existent?
I don't think it was even anything was existing there. I think because it happened at so young, I think
Mm.
once I'd kind of got to my sort of end of junior school and then starting senior school and things like that, I think so much time had gone that, as I say, it just became part of the norm. But and it almost became normal for me not to talk about it. The only time I remember actually thinking of saying something to somebody, I think I was probably about 12, I think. So it had stopped by then. And something had actually come up at school about another child that had gone through something like that. And at that point, I remember toying with the idea, thinking, perhaps this is my time to say something. Perhaps I need to speak about it. But funnily enough, because it had come out about this other person, someone else, another child, had then said about it. And that actually, rather than me thinking, oh, well, they've said it now as well. Oh, that's it. This is my time. This is my time to say something. It actually made me go the other way, because then I thought, almost like, oh, if I get on the bandwagon now, they're not gonna believe me because I'm just saying it for effect. Or so all that was kind of, you know, going in my mind as well. So I stopped myself from doing that. There was times, even with my parents, there would have been times where I didn't say what was happening, but I do remember incidences where I would try and tell them that something wasn't right. But they didn't notice, or they would just ignore it, or they had their own things at the time. I don't know what the reasons are, and even to this day I still don't know what their reasons are. But my family have very much been, anything that's difficult to talk about, it gets swept under the carpet. They would rather bury their heads, and it stays there. It never comes out again, no matter what it is. Even the stuff that obviously that's really serious, but there could be stuff that isn't actually that serious, but they would still not want to deal with it. So I guess, without realising it, obviously when I was young, but I think I guess kids pick up on things, don't they? And they can kind of read the room, really, even if they don't really know or understand what it is. So I think there must have been something in me that realised that it maybe wasn't safe for me to actually say anything and tell people. So it just became part of the norm, just to carry on, really, and carry the burden myself. And as I grew older, as I say, more time went. It was only when I then came to have a relationship when I was 17. And we'd been together probably about a year or so. So I imagine it was around 18 that something had happened. I'm not even sure what it was, but it came out. I decided that I'd had enough of keeping it quiet, and I just blurted it out, and I said what had happened. And he was
to your partner, yeah.
To my partner at the time, yeah. So he was the only person that I knew. And to be fair, he was all right with it. He didn't at that time judge me about it or anything like that. But we didn't really talk about it again after that. So it had come out, and it was all upsetting, tears, all of that sort of stuff that you'd expect. But then it wasn't like, right, okay, well, we need to see somebody and talk about it and give you the help to, you know, kind of get your head around all what was going on and your emotions behind it and all of that sort of stuff. It wasn't really anything like that. So I guess in a way, it was a bit like the same pattern with my parents, that we just sweep it under the carpet. We know it's there, but we just won't really talk about it. And again, that was the norm for me. So I just carried on brushing it away and not really thinking about it again. And then it wasn't until that relationship ended. There's lots of reasons why, but he had his own problems basically, and it got to the point where the trust had gone. He was doing things, you know, behind my back and all of that sort of stuff, and so that relationship ended, and we had a daughter at that point. So again, brought her up pretty much on my own. He wasn't really a dad that was hanging around and doing the right thing and by her and all of that sort of stuff. So there was a lot of stuff that I had to deal with. And then it just became a car crash from there on in, really. I eventually, you know, came into another relationship. Again, that was somebody that was controlling. Again, I was people pleasing. Everything I did revolved around everybody else. I never put myself first. I'd always want to make them happy, irrespective of whether I felt happy or not. To me, that didn't matter. As long as they were okay, then that kind of made me feel better, even though it didn't really.
Yeah.
And I continued to lose my voice. I didn't, again, talk about anything. I never told the next long-term relationship that I had. They never knew anything about the abuse. Kept it from them. So I've lived a lie my whole life, if I'm honest. I was still going to family get-togethers, still doing all of that as well into my 20s, 30s. I'm now in my 40s, and I finally said, enough is enough. I'm not going to attend these family things. I don't want to go. Everything I did around my family then became something that I felt really anxious about. So it really started to affect me. Every time there was Christmas, I'd be dreading it, thinking, "Oh God, I've got to spend time
Was
with
this person
family
there?
members."
Was
Yeah.
this person there?
Yeah. They were at these things around when I was probably about 25, 26. They then moved away, so then I didn't have to see them anyway. So that wasn't an issue in that respect. But still, nobody knew about it. So, yeah, it's horrendous, really, when you really think about it and digest the stuff that's gone on. I do think sometimes, God, like, how am I?
How you
still?
there?
How do you do that? And I don't know what the answer is. I haven't really got a clue, if I'm honest. But I suppose it's just one of those things, isn't it? You just persevere and you just continue the best way that you can.
Yeah. So obviously, you've got into a new relationship now, and how did that go? And also, I was going to ask you, are you in a position to say what family member it was? Are they aware you've been open about it now, or not?
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm still a little bit, and I don't know why. I am fighting against that in a way. I feel awkward in saying who it was, but again, I think that's probably the shame side of it. I think
You shouldn't be shamed.
No, I know I shouldn't. Logically, I know that, but I think subconsciously, I think there's still an element of resistance about telling people who. It's easier for me to say it was a family member and leave it at that than it is to say exactly who it was. But do you know what? We're a safe space, aren't we? So basically, it was my older brother.
What?
So yeah, and that's really like as I say, to saying it now out loud to you, and is just, yeah, it's mind blowing, really. But
I just
like I
want to
say, I've
say
come
that's
on
the
it.
first time. That's the first time I've heard that, because obviously I've knew Kerry's stories talking off there, but that's the first time I've heard that. So I'm a bit.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the thing. It is, well, you kind of expect it to be an uncle or a
I
teacher,
thought you was
or
going to say, yeah, I thought you was going to say uncle or something like
yeah,
that.
yeah,
So how
yeah.
old was he? Or is he?
So he was 4 years older than me, so he was still quite young as well.
So for him to do that, and it's not an excuse, I promise you, it's not an excuse. For him
No,
to do that,
I know. Everyone, yeah,
he must have had issues, big issues.
yeah. Obviously, I've asked myself now.
Not
Now
to,
it's
it's
all
not right, but because that makes him
no.
what, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. He started that at 11, 12, and
Yeah, so he would have
yeah,
probably just
he must
started
have issues.
senior school or something. So
He must have had
possibly,
issues,
yeah, possibly it happened to
it's
him.
not right. It's
Who
not right.
knows?
Yeah,
No,
yeah, exactly.
but
This is what I'm saying. Yeah,
yeah, but that doesn't excuse it,
that's not
as you
right.
say.
No, cool.
And whatever his reasons, he put that on me and ruined my childhood.
Yeah, and your life.
Yeah, my whole life. Absolutely, absolutely. So that, I think, because of who it was, I think made it even worse. So obviously, as I say, the family get-togethers. How could
Oh
I come
man,
out and say that? So I
how did you get through
literally,
that?
I don't know. I really, really don't know. The only thing that I can imagine it was the fact that I dissociated from it all. It was
Yeah,
like almost like an out of body experience, as you can
yeah,
imagine.
yeah,
I'm kind of
yeah.
outside looking in, and that was my way. I think my brain literally shut it off as
But
a
did he
safety
ever mention it
mechanism.
to after those years, like going to these? Did he ever mention, or did he act like nothing happened?
Like nothing happened. Nothing happened.
Yeah,
And
man.
when I was in my 20s, he moved over to another country, and I think he did that because
On
of what
purpose.
he did. And he's never been
Yeah.
back here. He's never come back for anything. Never been back to this country. So he's been gone 20 years now, and he's never ever come back for any family dues or anything like that, which obviously is great for me. But never been back. Now that's weird, isn't it? That's odd, the fact that he hasn't done that. So for
Are your
years,
parents aware? Are your
they are
parents aware
now.
now?
They are
What's
now.
what's that saying?
Well, for a long time, obviously, they realised that me and my brother didn't get on. They realised,
Yeah.
obviously, there was something going on. And I almost felt like everything fell on my shoulders. Oh, well, can't you just do this? Or can't you, what, can't you just go and wave a white flag or whatever, and see him, or go and visit him, and all of this sort of stuff. And of course, in my head, I'm going like, no way am I doing that. And I'd basically say no, but I didn't tell them why I would say no. I'd say
Yeah,
he was horrible to me as a kid, and I'd give him instances where he'd be a bit of a bully and stuff like that to me, but I didn't obviously say the real reason as to why. But what happened was, which I touched on the other day, was when I'd told my daughter's dad about what had happened. As I say, we never spoke about it, and we never spoke about it at all. I haven't seen him physically other than a couple of years ago for my grandson. So I've got a little grandson, and he's 2 now. So it was his first birthday, and then he actually turned up there. So that was the first time I've ever seen him in like 20 years or whatever it is. And but he decided one day, probably about 3 years ago, I think, to tell my daughter. And there was something that she said that made me think, oh my God, she knows what's happened. And I was in a bit of a panic, because I was like, what's she going to think of me? What is she going to think? Why I haven't told her all these years? Is she going to be upset that I hadn't told her? All the emotions that she might have, because obviously for me, obviously I didn't tell anybody, so that it wasn't even like I was just thinking, oh, I won't tell her. But also in that moment I was thinking, but if I had told her myself, then I kind of felt like I was putting it on her a little bit, and I didn't want her to have that burden on her shoulders. So I wouldn't have probably told her for that reason. So probably, maybe I wouldn't have told anybody, even still to this day, if she hadn't found out. So he basically told her, just they'd gone to a pub dinner. I think it was someone's birthday or something like that. And he just came out of it, out of the blue. And of course, when I thought that she knew because of something that she said, again, because I didn't know, I was like panicking, thinking, oh, how do I deal with this? What do I do? But I didn't say anything to her. And then, as I say, it was probably a year later. We were sitting at my house one summer, and something was said. She was talking about her dad, and then I'd said, "Oh, basically, there's a lot of things that have gone on that you don't know." And she just looked at me and she said, "Mum, I know." And really like, I mean, even now, like that gets me. Do you know what I mean? Because that to me was like a massive thing. The fact that she knew what had happened, considering all those years, I told no one other than one person, and that was over, a 20-year period. It took me 12, 13, 14 years, whatever it is, to tell that person when I was 18. And they've just, obviously there was a betrayal thing there as well, because to me, if someone had told me something as big as that, and they knew that I was the only person that knew about it, no matter what the relationship was with me and that person, I know without a doubt that I would never, ever have spread that kind of news to other people. That's, to me, that's a whole new level. Yeah, that's not their story to tell. It needs
to come from you.
Yeah. So obviously I was angry, obviously. I felt betrayed, the fact that the one person I did tell, and that's happened. But actually, on the positive from that actually was a turnaround for me, I think, with regards to this, because I was more open about the abuse that I suffered in the relationships as an adult. But I'd never, as I say, addressed anything to do with my younger years. And I truly believe, which I know, that the reason I slipped into abusive relationships was because of all the stuff before that. Yeah. And even as an adult, it's probably only the last few years that I really connected the dots and realised why I ended up always in those relationships.
Yeah. I'll relate to you. I totally relate to you, because
it's just crazy,
you
isn't
finally
it?
you have that wake up moment where you think it all makes sense now. How you was brought up, why you chose to be quiet and stuff like that. I don't know if you want to, but are you able to talk about like your relationships in, like you said, you like the abusive relationships? Are you able to discuss what you went through there as well? So obviously at the same time you're going through trauma as it is with the childhood abuse from your brother, but then what about, this must have been hard as well, going in an abusive relationship. It must have fucked up your head quite a lot.
Because you blame yourself. You're thinking, what is it about me that makes these people treat me so terribly? What am I doing? What is wrong with me? It's not like what is wrong with them. It's what is wrong with me. Why am I falling into this trap of being around people that on the surface, when you first meet them, they're all the best thing since sliced bread, and then as the relationship deepens and you're in it and your heart's in it, things start to creep in, and it's because a lot of people say, "Oh, why don't you just leave? If it's that bad, why don't you just go?"
It's not that easy.
It's not that easy. It's not that easy, and especially when you've had the kind of trauma that I and other people have suffered leading up to those relationships, you're programmed into accepting the unacceptable, really. You might know that it's wrong, but you always think, because you've got, by that point, your self-worth is non-existent, and you always try and see the best in people, and also you kind of kid yourself into thinking, well, surely life's not that cruel, surely that this time this is different, it can't be, surely. why would this keep happening to me? Surely now this is the turnaround, and I'm going to find someone amazing, and this is going to be it. And I was always the optimist, even with everything going on, always trying to see the good in people, which is weird. I don't even understand that as well, because considering what I've gone through, why do I not think everybody's out there to get me automatically? And I didn't. I still wanted to see the best in people. But so my daughter's dad was my first sort of long-term relationship. And out of the others, this one was probably the better one. But it progressively got worse in a strange kind of way than it did get better. So he was a compulsive gambler. So always liked betting on the horses and doing whatever. So he was very much into that. I knew he was into the horses. I knew all of that side of it, but I never knew the extent of it. So he would be doing a lot of stuff behind my back, and he would be getting us into debt because we had a property together at the time, and he would be going down. There used to be a betting shop down the road, and they used to go and walk down there and go, "I'm just popping to the shop." It'd be gone in 40 minutes, you know, and you come back with a can of Coke or something, and you're like, well, clearly you've nipped into the betting shop. But that aside, it wasn't really, I don't think, the gambling as itself that finished it. It was the lies. And even when eventually I realised the scale of it, so he got into loads of debt, he was hiding letters, red letters coming through the door. And I think I was getting ready for work one morning or something, and the post used to come really early. So, and it always came at the time when I was upstairs getting ready for work, and I'd be up there, and then I think, oh, I heard the door go where the letter's gone through, and then I could hear tearing of paper. So I'm sort of up there getting ready and thinking, what's he doing? What's he doing in there? Anyway, of course, he went off to work before me, and I searched the bins, and I waiting to find out what it was that he was ripping up. And basically that was when I knew that he was getting us into debt. And obviously I was a part of that, even though I was oblivious to it at the time. So I just sort of delved further, obviously got all the bank statements, all of those sorts of things, and realised that, you know, I used to get paid, and because we used to have a joint account, he would pick me up from work on payday and go to me, because he again, me allowing other people to dictate my life, he always wanted to pay the bills and do all of that. But obviously the reason he wanted to do that was so that he could take the money that I earned, say that it was going on to bills, and of course it wasn't. It was going on to his gambling addiction. So to cut a very long story short, I tried for another couple of years, I think, to keep it going. He said he wanted to get help, and I took him to Gamblers Anonymous, and for a little while I think he was going, and then all of a sudden he was saying, because he used to work shifts, and so he would be going, you know, out in the middle of the night or whatever, but then he wouldn't come home for a long time after he was supposed to have finished and stuff like that. And then he'd say, I'm going to a meeting somewhere that wasn't really anywhere near work, or it was just lies basically. So he was just feeding me a load of shit and expecting me just to go, oh, okay then, you know, and not really realise what was going on. But obviously I did by that point. And it was just, and then of course it eventually ended, because it was all the reasons under the sun as to why he couldn't get help, and he just didn't want to help himself. I would have no money. I would barely even have a bottle of milk in the fridge. I had a baby at that point as well, so obviously I needed nappies, bottles, all of that sort of stuff. And it was literally like I'd have 20 quid to get all those things, which at that time wasn't too bad. But obviously nowadays you wouldn't be able to get anything for that. But it was just constantly, my parents would come round and there would be, I wouldn't have milk to make a cup of tea and things like that. So it was pretty rubbish. And eventually that broke down. And I had a few years on my own. Didn't get help for anything. Obviously, my past, didn't get any help with the fact that the relationship had broken down. We were married, got divorced, all of that sort of stuff. So I dealt with that predominantly on my own. And because I've been out of it for a few years, I was all right when I was on my own. So I guess I kind of thought that, I don't think I even thought about healing as such. That I don't think came in till much later. So I think I just got on with it again, as always, just got on with it and felt like I was in a good place or whatever. And then I met somebody else. Again, he was controlling. He was another one. He at the start, he was a lot of fun. And I think I needed that at the time. You could have a real laugh with him. And he was a bit, obviously looking back, I know that he wasn't right for me. But at the time, I think he was quite confident. Didn't really care what he said. And I think I was drawn to that because I thought, actually, it's quite refreshing because there's me that's been keeping so much stuff to myself and I haven't been able to speak out and say something if it's a little bit controversial or you know, or just speak my mind. Really, I'd never done that. So I think because he was like the opposite to me, and I think that was what I was drawn to. And also I think because of my past, I think I was always searching for somebody to save me. And here was a guy that was completely opposite to my ex-husband. Said it how it is, didn't really care what people thought of him, all of this sort of stuff. And I think in my head I was thinking, oh, actually it's going to be all right now because he's going to look after me, he's going to stick up for me if anything happens. And because to me, sticking up for myself just wasn't even in the equation. I don't think it even entered my head that I could do all that myself. I think I was always searching for that other person to make things better. That person is going to be the one, my saviour kind of thing, which sounds ridiculous, obviously, but that's the frame of mind that I was in, I think, at the time.
No, it don't sound ridiculous, but I can understand why you feel like that, so I don't think it sounds ridiculous.
But I do think people, I think the other reason as well why, because I didn't tell him about anything to do with my childhood. And so again, went through that relationship. We were together 10 years. Never said a word about it, and never thought that I was going to say a word about it. I think occasionally it might have popped into my head, should I say anything? But then I was like, no, what's the point? But I also think, again, by the time I realised that this was another guy that just wanted to control me, my people pleasing, all of that sort of stuff was something that they could manipulate and use to their advantage. So again, it was very much a one-sided relationship. I was the one making all the sacrifices and doing all the things in order to make the relationship work. And he was almost like single really, but with me.
Well, I get you, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so he still had a single life. He was still going on lads' holidays. He was still golf every weekend and all of those sorts of things. Where I'd be working, I'd at that point I then had my son. I was still trying to bring money in, even though I had a little baby. So I was literally off for about 6 months where I was at home. But in that time, I was childminding as well to bring some money in. So I had this tiny little baby. I had 4 other people's kids running around my house, trying to do all these things. Then I stopped doing that, and then I went into caring for a little while. I did that because that was something that I could fit in around the school run, obviously when he got a bit older and all of that sort of stuff. But he would get home from work, sitting on his ass doing nothing, and I would literally, I was supposed to be starting work. I'd have to go and do the school run, even though I was supposed to have started work half an hour ago. Bearing in mind, he's at home doing nothing. He's finished his day, and he's just doing what he pleases. I would literally drive to school, pick my son up, be late for work, drop him back, and then run. And I'd work till like 10 o'clock at night or whatever it was at the time. And I'd do the same again the next morning, get him up for school, all of that sort of stuff. It was just ridiculous, really, the stuff that I put up with. And I did allow it. But obviously there's reasons why I allowed it. And I don't think people really understand. And because of the crappy relationship that I had before, when I then went into another one, there was the judgment thing would come into my head. And I just felt that everybody would be thinking, oh, here she goes again, picking another idiot. What's wrong with her? And kind of blaming me.
To be fair,
Rather,
people are probably thinking that you still probably
yeah,
get idiots out there who just don't realise maybe there's something underneath that
no,
smile and that
exactly,
what's going on.
exactly.
So
And I don't think
I
people
say
really
screw them.
care. I don't,
Yeah, they
yeah,
don't
yeah,
care.
exactly. And now I'm like
Screw
that.
them.
Now yeah,
Well, I say
exactly.
they don't care, but they act like they give a shit by making judgments and having a view
Yeah.
on your life and shit stirring and that. But yeah,
Well, that's
screw
it.
them.
Yeah. And I think then I felt pressure as well. So when that relationship ended, and that was a really bad ending, he was just horrendous with the kids and everything as well. Just using them against me with everything. Basically, he said to me, if I leave him, then he'll take my kids away from me. That's what he said. That was his way of trying to keep me in that relationship. And luckily for me, I decided, you're not blackmailing me like that. No. And I did end it. I finished it. But I think I'd need another podcast for that. That's like a whole other story. I'll be on here all day.
Maybe we'll do part 2 one day.
So basically that ended. A lot of rubbish went on with that. Obviously, I had to find somewhere to live, all of that sort of stuff. And the kids were brought into it quite a lot, shall we say? So that was really difficult. So I had all that stuff going on. And then years later, I then met somebody else. Now this guy, he was.
I'm just getting my pen and paper out, just noting how many relationships. I'm joking.
I've had three longer term relationships in my life, so it's not like I was in and out of relationships every 5 minutes. I did have breaks in between, but again, it goes back to me feeling like I can't do this on my own. And I think a lot of people that have suffered abuse, especially, have that feeling that they can't do things on their own. Even though they probably do a lot on their own. Well, this is it. This is it. And I think that's it. I know from my point of view, I think I was always wanting that safety blanket to think whatever. I couldn't make decisions for myself. I would make them, but I would always be second guessing them and thinking, oh, what if that happens? And oh, what if I don't do that right? And all of that sort of stuff. So in a way, them taking those decisions away from me made me feel safer. It made me feel better, even though actually it was having a detrimental effect on who I was as a person. But I didn't realise that at the time. So then the last relationship that I had was the worst. That was awful. The mental trauma that I suffered with that, the emotional trauma that I had from that, physical, everything you can possibly imagine, I endured from this person. And again, he was somebody that was very much could switch it on, switch it off. So I used to think when he would have angry outbursts that he liked to have a drink, and I used to blame it on the drink. Oh, it's only when he's making excuses. Only when he's had a drink, that's when he gets funny with me and he gets a bit nasty and stuff like that. Because obviously they don't abuse you every day. It's intermittent. And the trouble is with people that abuse, they've been doing it for years. They're like masters at it. And they know exactly how to switch it on, switch it off. 1 minute they're talking to you like a piece of you know what. The next minute you're the best thing since sliced bread, and it creates confusion. And you're like, but 5 minutes ago you were saying how much you love me and all of this sort of stuff. Now you're behaving like that, and your brain can't compute what's going on. And over a period of time, this just continues, and it's reinforcing that you're not worthy and that you're useless, you're rubbish, and whatever else they might be saying that you are. The things that he would say to me, honestly, I can't even describe how it made me feel in my body, being told how useless I was and how disgusting I was, and every other name was a C word. I would be constantly told that I was that. And it was horrendous. It was, as I say, I didn't have the good relationships in my previous relationships, but this one was on another level. And again, I didn't know how to deal with it. I'd never had anyone that I could go to say, look, this is happening. And because I've had relationships before where they've been abusive in some form, again, it was like, how can I now say I've got another one? Oh my God, how shameful is that? The fact that I have got all of this stuff going on, what are they going to think of me? And that stopped me from saying anything. This one I was with for 2 years, and then I realised that I can't be in this anymore, because I don't think if I don't get out now, I won't be here anymore. He'd have done something to me. He'd already, the amount of times he'd put a fist to my face and stuff like that. And I think there was one occasion where I literally thought he was going to kill me at that point. And that for me was the biggest wake up call. And I'm like, because it was almost like the emotional stuff and the name calling and all of that sort of stuff was easier to deal with, and that I could kind of cope with that, which is weird, I suppose, because I've always had it. So it was like normal to me. And I'm like, okay, well, in a way I can cope with that. But then when it then became physical, even though there were physical stuff as well, you know, he'd forced himself on me and stuff like that. He'd be calling me names left, right and centre, and then he'd expect me to do the deed, so to speak, as if that made it all right, you know. So there was a lot of that as well. So, and I don't think I even realised that it was only when Next Chapter came in and they helped with their domestic abuse charity, and it was only when I was telling her that was what he would do, and she said to me, but that's rape.
Yeah,
and
I was just thinking
and,
that.
yeah, and that hit me like a ton of bricks, because even though I knew it was wrong what he was doing, that word didn't even enter my head that was what it was. And when she said that, I think that just opened the floodgates then. And then it was like, oh my God, I can't believe that's happened. It's so weird, like just someone pointing out something to you. And again, if I'd have told somebody in my childhood, it could have been that one thing that's made me realise, oh my God, I need help here, and I need to be supported. And that might have stopped all the other stuff. But because I hadn't told anybody, I'm internalising everything and trying to come up with the answers myself, which is impossible because I've got no experience on how to deal with this sort of thing. I'm just living it. So for her to say that to me, I think that was just so profound for me, because I was like, my God, that's what he's done to me. And it was just an awful time. I think out of everything, I think that was it. I think that was where I hit completely rock bottom. I was like, I had so much to deal with. We got a house together, so I had to deal with all of that. And he was making life as difficult as possible. He would stalk me. He would be in all my private accounts. He was in my bank account. Don't know how. I never gave him the details, but he was very, for a living, he's cyber security, and he works at a school. So he is in charge of all the stuff to do with tech and their accounts and all of that sort of stuff. So he had qualifications in ethical hacking and things like that. So he knew absolutely every which way to prevent me from doing anything that he didn't know about. My emails he was in, I would change my email address. He'd get into that. I had a Ring doorbell because obviously I was fearful when I was in our house before it got sold. I had to go to court to ask for a non-molestation order, and then he wasn't allowed to come back to the property for a period of time. The police obviously were involved. I had MARAC, which are the people that decide what kind of risk you're at. I can't remember exactly what that stands for, but yeah, they basically deal with what level of risk you are and what action needs to be taken in order to keep you safe. So they were all involved, but it was literally like long after we'd split up, the abuse was still continuing. He'd just been monitoring everything I did. So I was scared to go out the house. I didn't know what he knew, what he didn't know. Even throughout the relationship, I'd always get accused of having affairs and things like that as well. And, you know, he'd get into my car and straight away he'd be looking around in the glove compartment, the sides of the, you know, the wells at the side of the door and stuff like that. He literally had me under surveillance, and I think he had me like that from early on. I think instantly, as soon as I think he was in my phone. He'd put his fingerprint on my phone so that he could get into my phone as and when he wanted to. Literally just invaded my privacy every which way he could. I didn't answer my phone if my phone rang because I'd get accusations of who am I talking to. All of these things. It was literally, it was like I was in a prison. I wasn't allowed to do anything without his say so. So I isolated myself from friends. Again, I hadn't told anyone because here we are again. What are they going to think of me?
Yeah.
So yeah. So when obviously that then ended, and then I literally went downhill. Although I wouldn't say that I wanted to commit suicide, I did have suicidal thoughts. They were there. And the only thing I think that made me realise that I wouldn't do it was because of my kids, because I just couldn't put them through that. And that was I think if they hadn't have been there, if I hadn't have had them, then I don't think I'd be here now. I really don't. But I did have them and I needed to be there for them. So when I hit rock bottom, I decided, well, it's either go downhill completely and that's it, or I pick myself up and I do what I can to try and get myself through this. So I chose that way. So I did a lot of self-reflection. I did counselling. That was really good. The only trouble with that at the time when I was going through stuff to do with courts and things like that with the ex-partner, there was always a lot of stuff going on. So although I touched on the childhood stuff, because this again was the first time I came out with that, we couldn't really deal with any of that because there was so much going on in that moment. So the sessions, I think I had about 20 sessions, I think. And so it was generally just trying to get through day by day and just being able to sound off and say what was happening and how I felt and cry if I wanted to. And because I never cried, never did any of that. So there was a lot of stuff trapped within me that I needed to get out, really. So then I just decided actually I could be bitter about everything. I've literally had to start from scratch again, building my home. Financially, had to build myself up again because I pretty much lost everything because he took me to the cleaners, basically. So I've had to do a lot of hard work over the last sort of 3 years. So that was 2019 when we actually split up. So all through lockdown. Lockdown for me was a big saviour as well. That was really good because for me, I didn't have to pretend. I didn't have to put the mask on. So all my life, that's all I've ever done. Everyone would think outside looking in, oh, she's always smiling, she's always bubbly, never got a bad word to say about anyone, all of this sort of stuff. And obviously that wasn't really what was happening inside. But as I say, I always talk about everything being normal. That was my normal. But so I just decided that enough was enough. And if I let it eat me up, then all it's going to do is take me back there and I'm going to be back where I started from. So I have to remove that from my mind. I've dealt with it in a way, but obviously it's still there. Every now and again it comes in and I can't believe somebody's done that to me. And out of spite, when actually all I wanted to do was have a loving relationship, which was all I really wanted. I'm not a high maintenance girl. I don't expect that them to do anything above and beyond that, but just be good to me, and in turn I'll be good to them, sort of thing. So, but it was just, it just didn't work that way. So I just worked on myself as much as possible. I started training into being a coach for people that have gone through trauma, and I'm still doing courses now as well that I'm using in order to set up my coaching practice. And I just want to turn it into a positive. So I do a lot of volunteering as well. Obviously, I'm coming on board with you guys, and also I volunteer for Health Watch Essex. I'm a trauma ambassador, and we meet once a month and we create initiatives around trauma that we can put out. We're based in Essex, which is where I am at the moment. But we recently, one of our biggest initiatives was organising a trauma card. So basically, when you access services, it could be doctors, it could be dentists, it could be anything. Basically, you've got a card and it will say, I'm somebody that's gone through trauma. I'm finding this appointment really difficult. Please just be gentle with me. And you hand that, so then they're aware straight away. So that takes all the stress and the anxiety out of accessing the things that you need in order. Obviously, health-wise, everyone needs to go to a doctor at some point or get their teeth checked, all of those sorts of things. But people put it off because the fear of being in close proximity with someone on a one-to-one and all of that sort of stuff. So we've done things like that, and we've got a few things coming up this year as well. So it's just all about giving back, really, and just trying to help people and prevent them if possible, but if not, help them through the things that I needed as I was growing up. And
So how are you? Like, how are you now? How are you coping? How's life treating you now?
I'm really good. I think I'm in the best sort of space now that I've ever been. I'm confident now. I feel that I can speak my truth. I can say what I feel. I can be the person that I wished I'd always been. And I'm meeting so many amazing people along the way as well. Just making new connections and just being able to be me. And yeah, I'm in a really good place. And despite everything, I'm going to make a good life for myself, whether it's with someone or on my own. I'm happy to be on my own as well. So it's not like I need to be in a relationship. Obviously, you know, I've got a relationship now, which is a really healthy one. But I do a lot for myself. So if I want to do something, I will do it rather than putting everyone else first. So I start to put myself first and love myself and just be a good person, but also remember that I need to look after myself first as well.
Yourself. No, well done. Like you listen. This is going to relate to. There's plenty of women probably going through this now as we speak, and they shouldn't be going through that. And hopefully they can try and build that voice to seek support in some way. You should be proud of yourself. You're an inspiration to a lot of people. I'm proud of you. You should be proud of yourself to go through all that shit. And to be here now, smiling. So be proud of yourself and know that you're going to inspire people. You're inspiring me. Just before we end, Harry, to people out there, if there's anyone going through a bad time like what you've been through or anything else and scared to talk, what would your message be to them?
Find somebody that don't listen to the outside noise, people that haven't been through it. They can advise you as much as possible, but at the end of the day, they don't understand it as much as somebody does that have gone through it. So seek advice from people, do your research, try and find somebody that has got some sort of related experience to what you're going through, and just open up, talk about it. It definitely does make a difference, as hard as it is. We've all been there, even in this group now. If there's anybody that does want to reach out, then obviously they can to me personally. But obviously, just don't sit in silence.
Yeah.
And be proud of who you are. No matter what's happened to you, you deserve the very best, and everyone deserves to have a happy life. And it's about trying to be proactive in making that happen, and everything's possible. So even when you feel at your lowest, always know that there's always a way to get out of it. But it's just a case of finding the right people to help you along the way.
No, I totally agree, and I'll echo what Kari just said. Because please speak out. Screw those people judging you. Screw the stigma around it. You should be proud of who you are and be proud and enjoy. You deserve to have a happy life. Superwoman over here. Oh, Kari has obviously done it, so come on, you can do it too. On that note, Kari, thank you so much for sharing. I'm honoured that this is the first place you've really sharing this with. Obviously, cliche, I'm going to say this is your safe space as well. But no, seriously, I'm really proud of you, and you should be proud of yourself as well. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Thank you for creating this space for people to be able to do that. As I say, this is my first time that I've actually really spoke publicly about it. So if I can do it, then obviously everyone can. But it's just brilliant, the space that you've created for everyone. So you should be proud of yourself too.
I just want to say as well, off air, Kari was really, I'm nervous, being a bit nervous. I'm not very, you've done wicked. So be proud, yeah?
Oh, thank you.
All right. On that note,
I better get to
it's
work.
been a safe space between us, yeah. Let's break the stigma and break the silence. I've been Kieran, and that's been Kari. Thank you. Take care.
Bye. This is your safe space. There is no judging here. We care. You're not alone. We will support you